with our official 420 episode of Sessions with Mary Jane. I am your host, Jordan Freed.
And I'm your other host, Reena Ezra.
And we have a very fitting and a very special guest today, a trippy, hippie legend of sorts. He's been all around the world and back, and he also has an illustrious film and television career outside of his hippiness. Welcome to the show, Larry Hankin.
Well, thank you for having me. That's where did the appellation hippie? Where did you discover that? How did you come about that? It's not wrong. I just want to know where it came from.
I just did a little research into your past, obviously.
Oh, about the 60s and stuff? And
yeah,
okay, cool.
We're comedians as well. So like the committee stuff is very cool to us.
Okay. Then definitely I'm a hippie. I'm the 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, nobody's a hippie anymore.
Whatever happened to the 60s?
That's what I want to know.
Came and went.
Because I think there were a lot of parallels in like 2019 to like 69. Like I think a lot of people were bringing that stuff up.
Yeah, but we started something and then we never finished it, and it just kind of disappeared, and everybody just had kids and got jobs, cut their hair, and that was it. Thank you and good night. It's just fucking weird, man. So my memory of hippiness is kind of cool, but whatever happened to it is a sort of drag, man. It just now we're in this BS, and it's just gone the other way. It's like the Republicans are now the hippies. In the opposite direction, but they're doing what we were doing. Mm-hmm. It's taking over the media, and nobody can think of anything else. But oh my God, that's it.
Yeah.
OMG is the new cry of the new hippie. I got to come up with another name for it. It's not hippie. I mean, now, what's going on now is the exact mirror image of the 60s. It's just so bizarre. But I guess, that's, I don't think I got myself started here down an alley that I kind of, it's, anti-intellectualism, anti-liberalism, it's anti. That's it, And how do you deal with that, man? I mean, whoever owns the airwaves, the airwaves, the media, whoever owns the media rules. Yeah. And right now, hippies are like 1,000 years ago, man.
Yeah, that's kind of why we want to talk to people from your generation, because you guys knew what was up.
Well, we thought we did. If we did, this wouldn't be happening. We didn't know shit, man. I guess, I was in San Francisco with the committee, and that was, Mario Savio and Berkeley and hippies and long hair and LSD, but it never really. There was pockets all over, New York, but it really, once I got to Hollywood, that all disappeared.
You grew up in New York, right? What was it like back then?
I'm from Rockaway, Long Island. No, what I grew up in was total vapidness. It was like a fog. A fog of fear, like the fog of war. It was the fog of right now, like being incorrect. My parents try to be Norman Rockwell. That's what started the downfall. It's all Norman Rockwell's fault. The Norman Rockwellian of the United States is what's going on now. I mean, we've just totally bought all his Post magazine doodles, droodles. And, I don't think, I see where I was going with this. I don't see the viability of Homo sapiens. There you go. That's it right there. I really don't. Thank you. Thank you for that affirmation.
Well, now I'm curious about that because, was it the fatalism of our people and seeing this around that got
the stupidity.
Because you were touring as an early form of stand-up. There wasn't really stand-up comedy in that way. You were one of the early stand-ups in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, but I couldn't cash in. I couldn't monetize it to talk in modern language. I grew up in a very vapid, protected, muffled, cotton-filled world, a home, a house in Far Rockaway. So when I went to college in Syracuse University, I wanted to be an artist. Those are my paintings. I'm a painter. I'm a storyteller. That's what I am. But that was all denied. So I couldn't do any of that. No jokes, no painting. You got to be a lawyer or a doctor. That was it. And I didn't know any other choices. That was my choices, doctor or lawyer. So, and I didn't want to go to college. I had no interest in college, but I was also a good son. This is what I mean, a good son. I was brought up to be a good son. I am the second generation immigrant. So it wasn't filtered out yet, the European version of America. And the American never really could get into my house. It just barred. So a good son of an immigrant, of a first generation immigrant, a good son goes to college and becomes a doctor or a lawyer and takes care of his parents legally and medically when they get too old to shut you down anymore. So that's what I grew up in. I went to college because of I could only go to a college that was near, not too far away, is how they put it, and also it had to be a career, some sort of career. So I saw, and therefore my cognitive thinking was just totally shut off. There was no, I couldn't make any decisions on my own. It had to be handed to me. Here's what you do, here's what you say. And I went along with it. That was the weird thing about me, it was about me, that it never really kicked in. And there's many reasons why. Okay. So I went to college because I saw at Syracuse University, I had a course in industrial design. So I bought into, that's why I remember my cognitive thinking, I bought into the design part of the two words, thinking that industrial design meant how art affects an industry and how industry affects art. That's perfectly cool. But no, that's not what it was about. And I had signed up, and because I could go to Syracuse, which is a throughway ride of 5 hours to get there. I thought that's far enough away from home. No, because basically the colleges were built like your home. I only knew what was taught and thought at Syracuse University. There was no outside influence. Now, this was the 60s. And so when I got home after 5 years of college, a 5-year course, I was still thinking like I was at home. Even that 5 years did not change my mind or my thinking ability one whit. I love that phrase. One wit. So I was a good student because I was a good son. So a good son is a good student. So I got like A's, A minus, my average. I was cool in those terms. And when I graduated, on my senior year, I didn't know this, but this is what was going on in the background of the industrial design department, and I guess in all other departments. Syracuse University was kind of a famous college, so they had a lot of input there. And so Detroit, who designed cars, Ford, Chevy, all those things, I didn't know this, but they had signed up a lot of all these car manufacturers in Detroit had signed up a lot of industrial design colleges where they could get people to design cars. They went to the colleges and say, send us your, first of all, send us your A students and we'll take them for a tour. So that was the senior thing. I went on a tour of all the Ford Motor Company. I believe it was Ford Motor Company. So I went with me and another guy from Syracuse, and there was 4 other colleges. So there's about 8 or 10 of us that were flown there, and we stayed for a weekend, and they took us for a tour through everything, the design department. And I wasn't impressed at all. I mean, when you're in college, they say, well, think outside the box. That was the industrial design mantra of college. Think outside the box. Well, outside the box is just a bigger box. It's a box within a box. It's like a Chinese,
Yeah. The Russian dolls, yeah.
So, that meant nothing once I got there. And so I went over to, this is the turning point. Yeah. As they're taking us through the tour, we go to the design department where all the artists sit, the graduates, the A students from the other colleges, designing stuff. And on their desks, they had, their projects. I guess it was a Saturday that we took the tour. So I picked up, they had these little plaster of Paris cars that they had designed and built, little white models. They're, about as big as that. Mm-hmm. So I picked one up and I'm looking at it, So the tour guide, who was actually one of the designers who was assigned, to take us around, saw that. I was the only one who picked up or touched anything on anybody's desk. And I picked it up, I was looking at it. And he goes, oh, you really like that, huh? And I said, well, actually, no, I was expecting a little more from Ford. This is not that great. And he said, so he didn't say anything, but the look on his face was not cool. It was not. So I thought, oh, wrong thing to say. Okay. So then we went on, and then we go to, and I was just, after that, I was like dissing everything to myself, to the guy next to me, but I thought, just cool it, Larry. And then they took us to the cafeteria, or it wasn't, it was a restaurant where if you go for lunch or dinner or whatever. It was like a campus. All of those places are like campuses. They're like universities. They have quads and different buildings and stuff. So we go to and they say, well, this is the cafeteria. And really, it was like an upscale New York restaurant. It was beautiful. It was great. So I was really impressed with this. And I did say out loud, I said, wow, man, this is cool. And the guy smiled. I thought, oh, okay. Well, got on the other side of him. Great. And I said, so wow, man, we eat lunch here and dinner? And he goes, oh, no, this is the executives cafeteria. You don't eat here. And I go, what? Then why are you showing this to us, man? I mean, if we can't eat here, why are you showing it? What, are you trying to impress us? What the hell's going on? And I just, he just said, you don't want to work here, do you? And I thought, right in that second, I thought, there's nothing I can say in Detroit that will be okay.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm going to, so when I went back to, the university and I graduated, I thought, I can't do that. That's just not, no. So, and also, they also said, yes, yeah, we like it, but don't send Larry Hankin. I mean, it was just, so my best friend at Syracuse University was Carl Gottlieb, who wrote later on all the Jaws movies. But we didn't know that then. We were just college guys, and we hung out together. And so when I got back, this is my senior year, 5 years, man. And he was graduating at the same time, and he was in the drama department. He wanted to be a writer. He always wanted to be a writer. So I said to him, where are you? So now we're going to graduate together. I mean, not together, but at the same time. So I said, where are you going when we graduate? And he says, well, I'm going to Greenwich Village, man. I'm going to be a writer, I go, Greenwich Village? What's that like? So I didn't know what.
Okay, wow.
There was, that was the beginning of the 60s. I mean, now, so I said, that sounds cool. And that's why, the word Greenwich Village, because I grew up in Far Rockaway, Long Island. So on weekends, I would take the train into New York and hang out at Greenwich Village, or go to 42nd Street and hang out at the Metropole, where Cozy Cole used to play jazz. So jazz or Greenwich Village, and so I kind of knew hippie, but I didn't know the language. I didn't know the costume. I just recognized it as, oh, Martians, wow, cool, and jazz uptown there, and oh man, Cozy Cole, Topsy #2, incredible. So that was new to me. So I went with Carl and we moved to Greenwich Village, and that's where the 60s were introduced to me, and that kind of thinking, and I was still dressed in a suit, or not in a suit, but that kind of Norman Rockwell shit. And what I did was, because I was an industrial designer, there's no need in the 60s for an industrial designer in Greenwich Village. So I was cleaning up bars at night, or one particular bar, sweeping up bars from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. I would clean up the bar, peanut shells and all that stuff. And I would steal food, because you don't make much money cleaning a bar from 2 to 6. So I would, go into the bar and grill. So I would take protein and, rashers of bacon I would stick in my belt, and wear a raincoat. I would wear a raincoat to work, just like Harpo Marx. That's where I got the idea from.
Yeah, that's what I made me think of.
Yeah, he just, and he'd steal the spoons and all that stuff. He'd open his raincoat and clank, 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 clank. Woo! So that's what I was doing. I was sticking it in my clothes and then wear the raincoat over it so you wouldn't see any bulges. But I thought, after about a month or so, I thought, I got to quit, because I didn't like it. But I didn't like the job, but I was okay with making, $1 an hour or whatever the hell I was making. I don't know what, but it was okay. I thought there would be other jobs a little better than this around, but I never looked back on industrial design, and they were paying like, $100,000, $75,000 a year just to go there. Wow. And that was okay with me. That's not what I'm about. I just wanted to change my mind. That's what I wanted to do. Change my mind. And I thought, okay, this is a good place. This is going to do it. So I started hanging out. I was voted funniest in high school 2 years in a row, my junior year and senior year. So I thought, I'm funny. And I started hanging out at the coffee houses and the open mic nights. You get 3 minutes, you go up on stage. So there's just folk singers and male stand-up comedians. That was it.
Hmm.
That was the Village.
Yeah.
Wow.
Male stand-up comedians and folk singers. So the girls could get up on stage and the women could get up on stage if they had a guitar. So I just knew funny people who were giving me new information as to what's funny now. You know, politics is funny. I never knew that. And guitars. So, you know, guitar. So that was cool. That okay, I'm here. And I thought, wait, I'm funny. I could I can do 3 minutes. I can do that. So that's what I started to do. And because I guess I have a funny gene, because my learning curve was really steep. I mean, it is steep to begin with. It was just easy for me. I grokked it. I mean, I wasn't funny in the beginning. I still have memories, and I have little snippets of tapes that I made that was just terrible. I wasn't funny at all.
I was curious about that. I'm gonna try to break into your house and steal some of those tapes. I want to see some of those tapes from back then. Those are probably really.
Oh no, they had to be. First of all, they were audio. You couldn't.
Oh yeah.
That was the '60s. There was no digital.
Yeah. Well,
no internet. But I did pick it up. So 3 minutes, and then they gave me 4 minutes, and then they asked me to, MC the weekend show, which was money. You get paid. And then in 6 months, I was opening for Woody Allen and Miles Davis, and I go, oh, I made it. I mean, changing my mind. I had not made it in the big time, but.
All right, but, we got to stop. We got to stop right there. What was Miles Davis like? Like, were you hanging out with him? Like,
well, I tried to. I didn't have the language down. I had the thinking down, because Miles loved my comedy.
Nice.
And he would. I didn't know this. They told me this. I had worked. It was at the Cellar Door in Washington, D.C., which is a very hip Tony bistro in Washington, D.C., and a lot of the politicians, that's their nightclub. So that's why Miles Davis was booked in there. So they called me and they said, so I'd worked there like 3 or 4 times. Here's the deal. When I was up on stage doing 3 and 4 minutes, then I got to do the weekends. So I was getting like a 20-minute hunk, and I could do that. I come off stage one night, and there's this guy in a suit, and he said, hey, yeah, it was a very good show. You're pretty funny. I said, thank you very much. He said, you got a manager? I go, no, I have nobody. That's why I'm here, trying to get representation. He said, well, I'm a manager. Would you like a manager? I go, oh yeah, man. That's why we're here. That's why we're all here. Because that was the thing. When you went to Greenwich Village to get up on the stage, to get seen and do your stuff, you're not there to be famous. You're not there to make money. You're there to get representation. You want to get a manager or an agent to get the fuck out of here. And so when he said, would you like a manager? Representation. I mean, if you get representation in the Village, you're king shit, man. You're the top of the food chain. Hey, I got a manager. Wow, man, you got a manager. And then you disappear, because they start booking you. What happened to, Jerry? He got a manager, man. He's gone. It's like getting out of prison. He's gone, man. He's being booked all over. So I said, yeah. And he said, well, how would you like me? I'm a manager. So I said, okay. I mean, that was the whole thing. I go walk off the stage. There's a guy standing there. How would you like a manager? Yeah, I'd like one. How about me? Yeah, fine. He said, okay, I'm your manager. Tell everybody I'm your manager. My name is, oh man, I forgot his name. It'll come to me while I'm talking to you. But he was Woody Allen's manager. And so he started booking. I disappeared. I went out of the Village.
At this point, Woody Allen's just doing comedy. Has he done any films yet?
No, he wasn't Woody Allen yet.
Yeah.
He wasn't even Woody Allen. He just had started, and the reason that Jack Rollins is his name. So now I didn't know who Jack Rollins was. He said, if anybody asks you if you got a manager, you got a manager. My name's Jack Rollins. You tell them that's who your manager is. Okay. Now I didn't know who Jack Rollins was or is. Oh yeah, it was. He passed on now. But when we got to talk in the Tin Soldier, that was a bar next door to where I was playing in the Village. We would sit around, and if you had a manager, if you had representation, you had bragging rights. You could bring that up at the table. So blah blah blah. Hey, I got a manager, man. Oh, really? Who is it? I don't know. It's this guy. I can't remember his name. Jack Rollins. Jack Rollins, man. He handles. He handles Harry Belafonte. That guy's big, man. I thought, really? Yeah. So who else does he? Harry Belafonte. Okay. So who else does he? I don't know. And then there was two nightclubs within the Greenwich Village. Am I going on too long? I'm just
talking. This is amazing. No, keep going.
There's two nightclubs in Greenwich Village among the coffee houses. There's about 140 coffee houses with a stage in Greenwich Village in 5 blocks. I mean, if you got your 3 minutes, you just go here, you sign up, you go there, sign up, you go there. And by the time you sign up in about 5 or 10, you come back and you're on. You're the first one you signed up is you're ready to go on. And then you just come off and go to the next one and boom, boom, boom. So you could do like 5 or 6 sets in one night, which is an incredible way of really getting your shit together.
Yeah.
And because in any other venue, or if you have 20 minutes or something like that, 5 in one night, that's like 5 times, like say 4 nights, open mic nights. And then the rest is, the big time. The big time. Greenwich Village. The coffee house. Yeah. Saturday night. Hey, I got a Saturday night. I'm opening for, blah, blah.
Yeah, like Cafe
Tom Rush. I'm opening for Tom Rush.
Type places?
Excuse me?
Are you at like Cafe Wah, Bitter End type places?
Oh, exactly. Wait a minute. You guys are from New York.
Yeah, we live in New Jersey. Yeah.
Oh, but you know the Village. Oh, okay. So yeah, the Cafe Wah. I was at the Tin Angel. It was a Tin Angel, not the Tin Soldier. It was a Tin Angel. And Cafe Wah. I played Cafe Wah. I played. What was the 2 things you named?
Bitter End.
Bitter End. I played the Bitter End. Yeah. So that was it. So, but also there was upstairs at the downstairs. Jim Paul Eiler's upstairs at the downstairs. That was a nightclub, and the other one was Basin Street. Basin Street was in the Greenwich Village, man. That was like the mecca of jazz. And Lenny Bruce was playing there. And there's 2 people who I was told in the time I was in Greenwich Village, which is the 6 months period of my learning. There was only 2 people who anybody ever said, you got to go see this guy. You got to go. Nobody ever came and said, you got to see this woman or this girl or this gal. Nobody said, you got to see this guy. But there was 2 in the 6 months that I was there, only 2. Can you imagine who they were? Well, I'll tell you. One was Lenny Bruce. You got to see this guy. He's at Basin Street. And that was just like down the block. It was like 2 blocks away from the Bitter End. Wait a minute. I was at the Village Vanguard. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Basin Street West was in New York and Basin Street was uptown. No, it was the Village Vanguard. Lenny Bruce is playing, and the other one was Bob Dylan. You got to go see this guy. And that was before Bob Dylan was Bob Dylan, before Lenny Bruce, before Woody Allen was. These are all in the early 60s. So I went to see Lenny and I didn't get him at all. So that's how far gone my thinking was. I didn't get him. And then the audience loved him. I mean, he was just up and coming, man. So the audience is breaking up, and I'm going, he's not that funny. Come on, man. What are you talking? But of course, he was great,
Of course.
So I've seen him 4 times in person. And so I became a believer. So, but okay. And then the other thing was Bob Dylan. I went to see Bob Dylan, and I said the same thing. Guy can't fucking sing. He can't play the guitar. What the fuck? And I walked out. I walked out on Bob Dylan. At least I stayed for the show on Lenny Bruce.
Wow.
And I walked out. What the?
Ringing in my ears, yeah.
Now, luckily,
Good to know that 7 years ago I was getting the authentic experience still.
oh, 7 years ago. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. But 7 years ago, you were probably like a kid, right? So somehow.
Yeah. Or whatever.
Yeah.
10 years ago, whenever I saw him, he was doing.
Yeah. But see, I was a little older. I think I had done 5 years of college, and then this is 6 more months, maybe another. So I should have known better. But anyway, I was just absorbing. I was trying to get with it.
Yeah.
And so when I walked out on Bob Dylan, the interesting point of that was they said he was playing at the Gaslight. The Gaslight, is that still there? I guess it is. Yeah. So he was playing downstairs, and the bar upstairs was there was a bar upstairs. So that was where they hung out. And okay, and the Tin Angel, 2 bars. So when I went to see Bob Dylan, I had to get off my set. I was doing a set. It was like a Wednesday or something like that. I was doing a 3-minute or 7 minutes. So I had to do this thing, and I ran down, and it was packed. The Gaslight was packed, so I couldn't get in. I mean, I could get in, but I had to stand by the door. In other words, I got inside, and that was it. So I was standing by the door in, and I said, okay, it doesn't matter. I'll just stand here. And Bob Dylan comes in the door. And Bob Dylan at that time, he's a little guy.
Yeah.
He's got that cap. and he's got this 12-string guitar in a 12-string guitar case. So the guitar case, in my mind, was as big as Bob Dylan was. So... yeah, it's kind of this big 12-string guitar. And like, this is who they told me to run over and see. And he, elbows his way in, and get through the crowd. And he gets up on the stage, and he starts to play. And the other thing is, so that's the first thing I noticed, is that the guitar case is as big as he is. He's got this cap on. And he's surrounded by a gaggle of about 8 or 9, 12 to 15-year-olds. That was in my mind. Now, maybe they were 16, but they couldn't have been older than that. No fucking way. They were really, I got public school, just maybe starting high school. That was about it. And they followed him in. That was his fan group or something. He gets up on stage and everybody claps and he starts to sing. I don't even think I let him get through one song. It was just awful. It was just, Bob, if you're listening, I've learned my lesson. But he was just awful. And so I walked out. Okay, now there's a point to that. But I just walked out. Now I was right near the door, so I could just turn and get out. Okay. Years, I want to just pick up on that point. Years go by. There's a lot happened in between, but I'm playing at the committee now.
Yeah.
And we're like a hit now. We're a tourist attraction type of stuff. This is years later. And I'm sitting in the kitchen waiting to go on in between shows. We did the first show. No, we did the last show on a Saturday night, I think it was. And so I'm sitting in the kitchen waiting for the crowd to get out. So I don't have to, go through. So they're emptying out the theater now and going out. So I'm talking to the chef or whatever. And that waiter comes back and says, Bob Dylan's in the lobby. He wants to talk to you.
Why?
He wants to talk to me? Yeah. He's with his road manager. I don't know who he's with. Yeah, there are two of them. They're waiting. Now, years have gone by. I've come around. I mean, I think he's a genius. You know, I got all that down. This is a 61. So it's a year. It's at least a year later. At least a year later. I've changed. My mind has come around. I got his records and stuff. Okay. So I go, what the hell is Bob Dylan want to talk to me about? I know he's great. He was playing in Berkeley. You know, that was what the venue of his. That's why he was in town. But what is he doing here? And I didn't want to go talk to him. I didn't know what to say or why. And then I suddenly realized why he wanted to talk to me. He wanted to talk to me because he's going to ask me why I walked out on him at the Gaslight. That's why he wants to talk to me. So before I went out there, I had to get an answer. My mom is in the hospital. I got a phone call. I had to go to the bathroom. I couldn't. I'm trying to come up with why I walked out. I can't say because you were god fucking awful, man. No, I couldn't say that. So I walked out, and I'm still trying to think. Now the lobby is cleared. But but we had like a lobby and you could buy a drink and you could sit at a table and wait to go in. So it was kind of like a restaurant theater. No big meals. You could maybe get a sandwich and a beer and wine. And you sit at a table in the lobby. Okay, so I get out. The lobby is cleared now. The audience is out. And sitting at a table, well, surrounding a table, one table is all our customers. There was about 15 or 20 of the people who were watching our show, just ordinary, real customers, audience people, normal Norman Rockwellian people gathered around something that was going on at the table. So I'm thinking, and the waiter says, he's in there. He's sitting at that table. So I push my way in and I sit down. I got my excuse ready to tell him why I walked out. And I sit down and he's sitting with Bobby Newirth, who's even funnier than me. He's a really funny guy. I mean, really funny. I know, I know why Bob Dylan hangs around with Bobby Newirth. That's why. He's smart. I sit down and I can't figure out why an adult population of about 10 or 12 of our audience is just standing around staring at Bob Dylan and is like it's a museum or like he's a wax figure. And I thought, what must it be like to be Bob Dylan, man? To be sitting at a table and he's trying to. So I sit down and I said, hi, Bob, and he goes, oh, hi, Larry. Hi, Bobby Newirth. And Bobby Newirth immediately says, let's get out of here. This place is giving me the willies or whatever he was saying. He said, let's get out of here, man. This place is, I don't know, something. This place is, whatever he said was right on. Weird. That's what he said. Let's get out of here. This place is too weird, is what he said. And Dylan said, okay, can we go to a bar or something? So we went to around the corner. Okay. So I said, what do you want to talk about? Because I didn't want to tell him why I walked out. And he said, I want you to write me something. You want me to write you something? I mean, this guy's a writer. He's a songwriter. So he starts telling me what to me was just gobbledygook weirdness. But so he says, well, it's kind of now this is what he said. He said, oh, okay, so it's like in a bar, but Sammy Davis Jr. is tap dancing on the bar, and the wallpaper is all newspapers, and then we cut to like some I don't know what you call in high school basketball. They have these fold out bleachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. So Sammy Davis is tap dancing on the bar, and the walls are wallpapered with newspapers. And then we cut to some bleachers on a highway, and I go, and Bobby Newirth, and he just kept on going like that. And Bobby Newirth says, he gives Dylan an elbow, and he says, "Hey, Bob, he doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about." And I didn't. I was just sitting there confused as hell. Now, what I didn't know, see, it's all catch up. Every KETCHUP, UP.
Yes.
Catch up. It's all catch up. It's all catching up, man. In other words, every time I thought, okay, I got this down, I'm a hippie now, and then some new information. What the fuck is this now? What, I could, now it's LSD. I just got into marijuana. What? Stop. I can't keep up. So now Dylan is, I just heard his records. I'm trying to catch up to that. And now he's telling me something else. Now, what I didn't know was, I didn't know about MTV. What Dylan was telling me was he was just talking in flashing images, like his songs became, and how what MTV's videos were of songs.
Yes.
What I didn't know until years later, it took me about a year to figure out what Dylan was saying, was he wanted me to write an MTV video for him. For this new song, about Highway 61.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was all. Very simple. And I said, well, because I didn't know what to say when he said, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Dylan said, I know, just leave me alone, will you? Because he understood that I didn't get it. So he was going to try to explain it in my terms.
Yeah.
So Dylan knew what was going on. It's just that Newirth didn't have any patience. So he tried once more. Dylan tried once, but I couldn't grok what the hell MTV. I couldn't. Then a couple of weeks later, somebody showed me MTV, because this is the beginning of the 60s, right? It was the beginning of MTV. And he was in New York, Dylan. So I figured this all out. Everybody was coming to him with the new stuff, right? Hey, how about this? Hey, how about this? And he just came to me with that. And I said, well, wait a minute. Why did you come? So I was trying to obfuscate, get away from the question of, I didn't understand. I said, why are you talking to me? How do you even know I'm here? You're from New York, you're playing in Berkeley. And how did you show up here? Why are you talking to me? That's what I said to him. Yeah. I said, why are you talking to me? I don't get this. He said, you used to play The Gaslight, right? I go, yeah. He said, well, I was playing in the Village and people said, hey, you got to go see this guy, Larry Hankin. So I went to see you and you're really funny, and you were opening for Dave Van Ronk, right? I go, yeah. He said, yeah, well, I used to come to see you when you were in the Village. I go, whoa. So he was a fan of mine.
Wow. That's wild.
That blew my mind, man, when I heard that.
Yeah.
So because I was a fan of his at that moment, so he said, yeah, I used to come and see you all the time. You're really funny. So I thought maybe you could write me something. So I said, well, I don't know. So he says, okay. And Newirth wanted to just get out of it. He had no patience for me, the Newirth. Yeah. I mean, we've become friends since then. And Newirth is the best. He's better than Dylan. He's still Newirth. But then, okay, I don't know who this guy is. So Dylan said, because Newirth wanted to get out of there, he said, look, we got to leave. So, but we'll talk. Dylan says to me, we'll talk. Goodbye. Okay. And they split. And they left me sitting in this bar. Okay. So that's why I had to explain walking out of the Gaslight, the hookup was. But that was how I got into show business and stuff. From that, I got the manager, and then I was opening for Woody. And from there, club owners who hired Woody, and I didn't know this. I didn't know this, but you said Miles Davis. You asked me a question about Miles Davis. The thing about Miles Davis was I had played the cellar door a couple of times. Now that I had Woody, other club owners would say, well, who opened for Woody? We got a famous stand-up comedian, or we got a famous singer. We need a comedian opener, and then Jack Rollins, who had a big roster of very funny people, the top of the line people, that say, well, we got this new guy, Larry Hankin, why don't you book him? So I got a reputation for opening for famous people now. That was cool, from Woody to, so that's why I was opening for Miles. That's why they hired me. They had seen me at my act. Now Jack was touting me. And he said he would go good with Miles. So why don't you book Larry? So, oh yeah, he's been here before with lesser people. We'll hire him to open for Miles. So I did open for Miles, the opening night. I think I would 2 weeks. But what I didn't know was that Miles has in his contract that he has to approve of who opens for him, which I understand totally. As a headliner, if you got a bad person, it's really hard to bring the crowd around back,
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. I didn't know this at the time. Anyway, I opened for Miles. We opened. And then the next night, the next night when I came in to do the second night, the owner of the cellar door said, okay, so you're okay for the rest of the run. I said, what do you mean I'm okay for the rest of the run? That's already been decided. I'm hired to open for Miles. He said, no. He has to approve of you. We okayed you for the opening night. If you were fired, we'd have to pay you for the 2 weeks. That's no problem. But you couldn't go on if you said no. We'd have to hire somebody else because we do have a contract with you. But he came and in other words, Miles was in the audience before he went on to watch the opening act, and he gave me the okay. And then at the end of the run, Miles wanted me to open for him in Europe. He goes from cellar door to tour Europe. So he said, he said, hey, Larry, you're really funny. Let's go to Europe. And I said, I can't. Because to me, Europe was like a terra incognita. I mean, I thought my fate and my future lies beyond the yellow brick road in America. So I turned it down. I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but I turned it down. And that is the only kind of regret that I have about show business at all. I mean, it would have been great to tour Europe with Miles, but at the time, I wasn't up to it. I didn't have the information enough to see it as a wow, man, what a trip that would be.
Seems
but
like you had a
that's
lot of good timing in your career, for sure.
Excuse me?
Yeah. You had a lot of good timing, like with your decisions. Like it seemed like they were.
Well, good and bad. I thought, to me, it all levels out. It's, you get it when you get it.
Yeah.
And so some people are born getting it, and some people it's kicked out of them. I think everybody's born with it. You're born to get it, and you're born to do it. It's just your parents don't allow you to. Or I remember once I lived with a woman who had a small child, which was great, So we got along great, me and the kid. He was about four years old or something. But I remember what happened when you get it and not get it. I would write in the attic. We had a little cottage. It was a tiny little cottage, but there was an attic in the cottage. So I would write up there, and I would tell the kid, because he was into everything. You have the locks on everything. And so I told him, but he would go upstairs and he would look at my desk and he would mess it up, No, oh boy. So I pulled him aside and I gave him an adult talking to. Try that. Try talking like an adult to a 4-year-old. They don't, it's bullshit. I mean, they understand enough that they understand that this guy is talking bullshit to me. They don't understand what you're saying, but they know it has nothing to do with them. They just know that. So I'm saying, look, I would say I'll say his name is Peter. Look, Pete, you can't touch my stuff. You can't touch my stuff. So don't even go upstairs. That's where I write. That's where I write. So, okay, don't do that. And he goes, okay. So I come home the next day or whatever, and I go upstairs. The place is, I go, hey, Peter, come in here. Did you go upstairs? Yeah. Did you play around with stuff? Yeah. What did I tell you? I told you not to go up, and I'm going through this. What did I tell you? Yeah. Don't. And I'm starting to lose it. I'm trying to hold it in. But it's okay. The third time, then the fourth time. So the fifth time, I go, hey man, don't look, stop it. Don't touch my stuff. I have to. And he's starting, now I'm scaring the kid. So I go, okay, all right, I'm sorry, okay. Just please don't do it. Okay. So now I'm sitting in the living room doing whatever I'm doing, and I hear in the kitchen crash, glass breaks. Say, hey, Peter, come in here. What's going on? He comes in. What's going on? Nothing. Hey, nothing. What was that? I heard glass break. I don't know. So I go in the kitchen. There's a glass. The water is running in the sink. There's a stool up against the sink. And there's shattered drinking water glass on the floor. And I say, did you do that? Were you trying to get a glass of water? Did you drop that? And he goes, no. And I go, okay, all right, thank you. And I let him go and I cleaned up the mess. And what it taught me was I had taught the kid to lie.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Good lesson. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only way I got rid of that guilt, and it took me a long time. I never hollered at that kid again, ever. I mean, we were still friends, but what a blow that was to me. That fucked me up for months, man. Until finally, I had to talk myself out of it. And the way I did it was, I told myself, I said, look, once doesn't do anything to anybody. So, he lied to you. Maybe that was his first lie. I don't know what he did with his mom, but life is getting hollered at and breaking things and making mistakes. So it's called life, kid. Yeah. I'm sorry, but there are other times he's going to make mistakes and he's got to learn who's what and when to lie and when not to. I mean, I'm going to kill your mother if you don't tell me where she is and she's hiding in the closet. You're not going to tell where mom is. Yeah. That's a good lie. Yeah. That's a good lie. So, figure it out, kid. And then, okay, weight off my shoulder. But it took me a while. It did. And to this day, I told you that story because I remember it as long as I live, man. To see what I did, the whole act, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bang. Yeah, that was heavy.
Wow, it sounds like it. So to pivot a little bit, how did you start getting into film and acting? What people
for all the money. I just did it for the money, and I was never about money. And it taught me a great lesson of what I think there was I believe there was 14 years of my life that were complete well, not complete, but pretty near complete waste of my time. The 5 years, so it's 15 years. The 5 years in college, total waste of time. And the 10, what is it, longer than that, 70? Well, the last, either the first 15 years in Hollywood or the last 15 years in Hollywood were a complete waste of time. The first 15 years in Hollywood, because it took me that long to learn I don't belong here. It's like Detroit. You know, you don't want to work here, do you? Well, I don't like what the shit you're turning out, man. You know, every movie, you know, every TV show was like that. So it took me 15 years, and I stayed another 15 or 20 years because the money was so good. And the money was the trap, you know, because now I had in the comedian on the road, the rent was very nominal. Either I didn't have a place to stay, so I was staying in hotels, but the bookings were enough to pay the hotel bill and give me mad money, you know, to go do whatever I wanted and play and pay for plane tickets and everything like that. And I still had money left over. And I always had another gig because Jack was always booking me ahead, you know. So there was no worry about money, and I was having fun. But then when the critical thinking came and the cops started pulling me off the stage, and people were throwing beer bottles at me and coming at me with, you know, get the fuck off the stage.
All right, yeah, we want to hear about this, especially like with all of the abuse that comedians take today. I want to hear about this. Yeah.
Oh, well,
compared to what you have. Yeah.
Finger quotes for the audience listeners. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. What
finger? Well, I'll say, that's a good, thank you. I'm learning about Zoom. Thank you very much. Okay. Finger quotes. So what I started to see as I was getting booked more and more on the road, not opening for Woody and Miles, but the Kingston Trio, not my audience. My audience. Get the fuck off the stage and bring on the Kingston Trio. That's what was going on.
Wow.
Finger quotes, people. Okay, so that's what was going on. I you know, Woody and then Miles Davis, and then that brought me into another pay scale. Because he was opening for Woody Allen. He was opening for Miles Davis. Oh, well, he can open for the Kingston Trio. Now we're going to book him on big things. But no, and then that was a second, well, it was another lesson I learned. Okay, you've got to find your own audience, Larry. You can't just go in and think the people who love the Kingston Trio are going to love you. No, that's not how it works, man. So you're going to get booed if they don't want critical thinking. You know, and I was now into Lenny Bruce material, Carlin, Pryor, Moms Mabley, Red Fox. I mean, just on and on. So the cops, and then I was doing arena shows. I was opening for the Love Spoonful and the Blues Project and rock and roll and
I hear right that you opened for Jefferson Airplane.
Or Jefferson Airplane. Well, before they were Jefferson Airplane.
Oh, wow.
I mean, before they had that name, but, you know, Marty Balin. And I was opening for them when they were in their nightclub, when they were in their own nightclub. But I don't think they owned a nightclub, but I think they had a nightclub in San Francisco that they were a permanent, the bar band. Okay. So they were the Jefferson Airplane with a permanent bar band. And I would, after my last show at the committee, which was, I think, at 11:30 during the week, I would run over to their nightclub, which was not too far away. And they would let me do a set to open for Marty Balin and his band. Because the band and Marty Balin had come to see the committee. So they, you know, when I said, hey Marty, could they said, go to see this rock band there. There's a really good rock band. Went to see him. was the Jefferson Airplane. And I went up and I said, hey, can I open for you guys on a Wednesday night or Saturday night, when I get through with the committee? And they had seen this. Yeah, that would be cool. So I was still keeping my stuff fresh and making new material. And every once in a while, I'd take a vacation from the committee improvising, because it's improv. You can leave whenever you want. Somebody will just come in and improvise your part. I mean, when you come back, maybe you've lost your part because they're funnier. They improvised it better or changed the scene. You can do that. It's improv. So you just improvise a different one, Larry. Or you just step in. You say, I'm back. Thank you. So I was opening for them, and then the Love and Spoonful came to me and said, hey, we saw you. I said, where did you see me? How did you see me? And you go, well, we saw you in Greenwich Village. When you were playing, when you were opening for Dave Van Ronk, the same thing. When you were opening, because Zalyanovsky and all the members, see, that's the thing. When I was in Greenwich Village, everybody that I was going to meet for the rest of my life was there when they were 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Yeah.
So Frank Zappa, everybody. I mean, the Mothers of Invention, but they weren't Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. They were just separate musicians.
Yeah.
So I would open for them. They would open for me. It was just a mishmash. And then they started to coagulate into groups, the Mamas and the Papas. I mean, I was best friends with Mama Cass in the Village. She was a hat check girl. And Jim Paul Eilers, when I was opening for Woody Allen in the Village, my first gig that I had from Jack Rollins, I was opening for Woody at the Jim Paul Eilers downstairs at the upstairs, and the hat check girl was Mama Cass. And so I would hang out in the hot check room with her. We would just talk until I had to go on. I mean, and we were buddies. She's really funny, very hip. I didn't know she was a singer at all. I had no idea. And then later she got into with the Mugwumps, went down to, I don't know, Cuba or Puerto Rico, God knows where. I don't know, maybe Florida. And then they got the Mugwumps and then Mamas and the Papas. And, so I was opening for the Mamas and the Papas and blah, blah, blah. So when I was opening for the Love and Spoonful, because they had seen me in a Village and they needed a comedian to open. And that's when the cops started, because I thought, oh, the college crowd, that's my people. I found my audience. And I get on the stage, I don't know, 2,000 people, Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, huge auditorium. I opened for them. Just the first night, it was opening night of their tour. I was going to go on tour with them. Opening night of their tour, get on stage, you open with the clean stuff, the mild stuff. And then you get into it and then blah, blah, blah. And then the critical thinking stuff, Carlin Pryor, Lenny. And they just shut up and started booing. And then they were pulling off the armrests of the old auditorium chairs, the seats, the wooden ones. They would, if you hit them from behind, they would come off. They would pull, and they would throw them at me at the stage. The first two rows. Get off the stage. We don't want to hear that. No, the funny stuff. That's what they were yelling, like from the Woody Allen movie. Do the funny stuff. Do the funny stuff. I said, no, it's just naked. I said naked. That's what I said. I said, oh, you're naked. I was playing God. So that was it. They didn't want to hear religion. No religion. I said, I'm playing God. Come on, man. I was talking to them. I would talk to 2,000 people. Like I'd go, okay, I'm God, and here's this little human being, and he's naked. Boom! No religion, no body parts, no body parts. I go, what? And then I just broke character and said, are you kidding? Yeah, this is what I said. You're a college audience. What happened to sex, drugs, rock and roll? You were supposed to like this stuff. I try to explain to them that they were wrong. I was explaining to the audience what they should be doing. You should like this stuff. You're a college crowd. And they go, no, the funny stuff. So I said, okay, stop. I'll do the funny stuff. Okay. And they kind of quieted down. They stopped. And I'm dodging these things, man. They hit me. They makes them do some damage. So I did, clean stuff. And they just quieted down and started laughing. Like the other thing didn't happen.
Yeah.
I did 10 minutes of the funny stuff, the clean stuff, and then I got a really big laugh. So I thought, to myself, that okay, they're on my side now. They understand who I am. So I just went, okay, so let's get back to God and the little naked guy. No. And then they turned on the lights in the auditorium so I could see that the last 2 or 3 rows in the back of the auditorium were pulling off their armrests and passing them down to the front row because they didn't have any more armrests. So they were throwing those things up. And then I see the cops coming down the side aisles, the wall aisles, and from both sides of the stage, 10 cops on each side. And they marched up, and I was just stunned, man. And the audience just shut up to watch this. They just stopped throwing things. They just quieted down. And the cops marched up from both sides. And I just stood there in awe. I was gobsmacked. I was godsmacked. And they come up and they say, you have to get off the stage now. And I said, okay, fine. So each cop just from each side, one cop from each side, just put a hand on my shoulder. And they weren't rough. They were very, very polite. I don't think that they even know why they were pulling me off the stage. That's because I looked at all the cops. They weren't angry. They were just normal human beings dressed in cop uniforms, taking this strange tall kid off of the stage for what they couldn't, for no reason at all, except the kids were booing for saying God and naked. That was the only 2 curse words that I got out of my mouth before the booing and the cops showed up.
Why do you think that is? Why do they have such a strong reaction?
It was, I think, well, that's a good question. It never occurred to me, except that that's the reaction I got from the Kingston Trio when I was in a nightclub in Jack's on the Highway, and I started to do critical thinking material in a nightclub in the middle of a snowstorm outside. So there was not that many people in the audience. But when you're on stage in a nightclub, first of all, the stage is only about that high for you on the radio. My fingers are about 5 inches apart.
Yeah, it's more of an
it's 5. The stage is for the band, it's for dancing. There's a dance floor, and there's a little upstep, where the band did. So I was on the quote unquote air quotes stage, and the light, I couldn't see the audience. I just heard, tittering, and I could hear smiling, but there was only like 10 or 15 people in the audience. There was a snowstorm outside. It was Boston. It was Boston. Jack's on the Highway. Oh, wow. So, I didn't mind the fact that I didn't hear, loud laughter, but they were amused. And that was fine. And I was opening for the Kingston Trio, and the money was good. So all of a sudden, out of the darkness, across this big dance floor, comes this guy, this bohunk, this Starker, this lumberjack in a suit. And he had an upside down beer bottle in his hand, and he was angry. And he just very slowly walking across the dance floor and was yelling at me saying, get the fuck off the stage and bring on the Kingston Trio. Shut the fuck up. Exact quote. And I just said, okay. And I just walked off the stage because, the guy there's no contest, man. He would have just murdered me. So I just got off the stage. So when the Love and Spoonful, when these people, I thought, oh, it's the same thing, only it's now 2,000 people, not 15 people in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
But why those kids? Well, that's what it confused me. That's why I said, hey, you're a college crowd. Why are you booing me? I said that to them.
Was there something like that being just like a demonstration or something that just like flipped a switch in your mind as far as like the gap between age, the gap between time that's changed? Because, but like what you've already, I mean, how old were you at the time when you were doing the show?
21, 22,
Oh, okay.
23,
So you were younger.
24,
So there isn't an age gap number. It's not really yeah. I was just curious if there was, a difference in.
And I also, even if I was like 25 or 26, I looked very young. I looked about 18 or 19. I was a tall, skinny kid.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. What are you?
So unusual. It's just now you have all those stories.
Well, I've had quite a lot. Well, I wrote a book about it. It's called That Guy. I mean, I'm trying to get it published right now, but there's all these stories, and more.
I'm excited to read it.
Yeah,
it's been nice having you as an open book. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but the only way I could figure out the Love and Spoonful. But by the way, that was the first opening night of their tour of America, and I was on the tour. I was the opening. We went to the next stop was Northwestern University, which was at the other end of the spectrum. It was up in the West. I was Michigan or Wisconsin, somewhere in Northwestern University, and I feared. Love and Spoonful loved the fact that I caused a riot, that cops had pulled me off the stage. They kept on yelling from the side. Well, when they were throwing stuff, when they were yelling, "Get off the stage," the funny stuff. The Love and Spoonful were in the wings yelling, "No, do the naked stuff," because they wanted a riot. They wanted the publicity.
Oh yeah.
So they thought this was the coolest thing that could happen to them. They maybe even thought that would happen. That's why they hired me. I don't know that, but when the cops pulled me off the stage to go backstage, it's empty backstage. There's nothing there except the band waiting to go on and all their equipment to be, well, their equipment was set up already, but they were waiting. So when the cops pulled me off stage and they got me backstage, the band surrounded the cops. Well, there was 20 cops and 5 members of the band. So they didn't surround them, but they did plead my case. They did say, "Hey, no, man, leave him alone. I mean, he wasn't saying anything bad. Why did you pull him off the stage?" And then the cops just didn't say anything. They just left. I think they were embarrassed. That's why I think that they didn't know why, because the cops were called the first time they started to boo. When they started to boo, the dean, who was in the back there, called the police. So I cleaned up my act for 10 minutes. The cops came. So the cops were standing in the back listening to clean stuff.
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, let's go back to God and the naked guy." That's all. They started booing. The dean said, "Pull him off the stage."
Wow.
And they started. So the cops had no idea what the deal was.
Yeah.
But my figuring was, oh, I see. This is the South. It's Missouri. It's St. Louis, Missouri. So these people, these college kids, are at where I was at when I was in college.
Yeah.
That's who these people are. That's me booing. When I was in Syracuse.
Wow.
Oh, the whole country is not Greenwich Village. And I was opening for, Jack had, when he was booking me, was very cognizant of my act and where it was going. So he would kind of, massage me into the right places but I wasn't aware that I had to find my own audience. And then finally, Jack just was booking me all over and I had to find out myself. So that was a little rude awakening. But it happened several times when finally I called. I said, "Look, Jack, I can't do this anymore. I'm a middle-class Jewish kid, and I'm just talking what I see and think during the day. And it was fine in the village. Nobody booed me. The worst they did was sit quietly for my 3 minutes to be up. So the next, so their friend could get up and do 3 minutes, but they don't boo. And so what he said was, why don't you join Second City? They're doing Lenny stuff and Carlin stuff and Pryor stuff, but they own the theater. So if a guy comes at you with a beer bottle, they own the theater, they'll throw him out. And then he said the capper. And besides, the theater at Second City is at least 3 to 4 feet high. He'd have to climb up on the stage and you have 5 other people. So, you're cool. There's time for you to escape.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah. Okay. But that's what I did.
Cool.
I joined Second City.
So you went to
I couldn't take it.
So you went to Second City, like already a very, very established comic. So that's very interesting. Did you meet Del Close? Obviously you did around.
Del Close and I were roommates.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wait, I want to hear about that. We need to hear
that
about
relationship?
We lived. He was very funny. we went to school
learned a lot
together.
from you as well. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but I learned a lot from him. I mean, he was amazing. He was an improv guru. I don't know if he was a genius, but he was right up there. He was a Sufi, man. He was an improv Sufi. We went to improv school together. Because you have the wrong assumption about comedy. Being a stand-up comedian and being an improver is totally 2 different worlds.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
It's like being a mechanic and being a hair dyer. There's no connection at all.
Yeah.
The only thing that is comparable between the two is memory, photographic memory for setup and punchline. That's the only thing you remember. And sometimes you forget the setup. And you're trying to remember, what was the setup? I knew I got a laugh here, but I can't remember what the setup was. So, and that's important, But so I had to learn how to improvise. And again, there's a learning curve every time. Learning curve every time. So I auditioned. I mean, I could just go on and on. You want to hear about the audition? You want to hear about me going to school with Del Close? You want to hear about Del Close?
Yeah, I want to hear like the early, because like we're improvisers as well, so we want to know a little bit
really?
About early improv. Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking to improv.
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you about improv. Let me just lay this out for you. Okay. We were sitting, I went to school. I was taught by Viola Spolin. Does that hit a note for you?
Yes.
She is the godmother of improv. She is the Lee Strasberg of improvisation. And, no plotting, no mental writing, no plotting. Agree, yes, but, yes, and. And she does. So me and Del, because I was a stand-up comedian and I auditioned, not as a stand-up comedian. The audition was just amazing. I was auditioned and directed eventually by Paul Sills, Viola's son, the founder of the Second City. So he knew I was a stand-up comedian. So when I auditioned for him, first of all, I had to go to a little auditioning school that was run by Alan Meyerson, who later became the director of the committee, which is where I went to. So in those, I was auditioned by Alan Meyerson, who later, 2 years later, would hire me in the committee. But he was the one who auditioned me for Second City. He saw that I was a stand-up and I needed a little teaching, to get the gist of it. It's not making up jokes. That's deadly. So he said, you got to go to classes. Okay. So I went to a couple of classes. Okay, I got it. By now I was a fast learner. That helped, being on the stage a lot and understanding quickly. So I picked it up. Okay, and then he says, okay, now you can audition for Paul Sills for the company. Now you're ready to audition. So I got a phone call saying auditioning for Paul Sills. He flew to New York to audition me. He auditioned a lot of people. So I auditioned. Now here's the audition. This is really cool. I don't know if it rings a bell with you two. But this is my audition for Paul Sills. he said, okay, meet me in an office. This is what, meet me at blah, 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 which was an office building in Midtown Manhattan. There's no theaters in Midtown. This is the business district. And it was in an office, in a major office, with cubby holes and glass windowed offices and, big conference tables and glass rooms. So, I come in, I get off the elevator and, okay, I go to this room and there's Paul sitting in an office behind a desk of an executive. It's like a CEO.
Yeah.
Business, nothing to do with theater. And he comes in, hi, you're Larry Hankin? Yeah. Okay. So he says, okay, there's no place for me to sit. I stood in front of the desk like I was, I don't know.
Being a presentation.
For my presentation, exactly. Thank you. So I'm just standing there and he goes, okay, so let me just tell you, I'll give you a clue. Okay, Larry? Okay. All right. The first thing I want you to know is, please do not try to make me laugh. Please, I've laughed enough today. I'm tired. I don't want to laugh. I don't feel like laughing. So that's out, okay? The second thing, there's a key hidden in this office somewhere. I want you to look for it. That's it? Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I just start to look for it, and I start to look around for, first whatever you do. I mean, I thought, wow, I was so stunned that I had nothing, which I guess would, help. But so I looked for a little while, maybe about a minute, I don't know. And they said, okay, thank you. And I go, oh, okay. And then I just stood there again in front of the desk and he said, no, that's it. Okay, that's it, I can go? He says, yeah, thank you. So I left. That was the audition. So I said, well, that was a big nothing. I guess, I didn't measure up. And then about 3 days later, I got a phone call. You're hired, you're going to, whoa, yeah. So he says, you're going to St. Louis, like Tuesday. What? I'm in New York. I thought you guys are in Chicago. What's going on? There is a Second City in New York. There was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But I'm from New York. I figured I'd go into the New York company or be sent to Chicago. But no, you're going to New York. What's that all about? Well, the Crystal Palace, which is Fran Landesman, who was a great jazz songwriter, and her husband, Landesman, owned the Crystal Palace also. I guess that's what she did with her jazz song money, bought a nightclub. And they booked Second City into Crystal Palace in Missouri. Now, I had been there, booed off the stage with the Love and Spoonful. So this is St. Louis, Missouri, same city.
Yeah.
I go, wow, man, what a return. Okay. So they booked, so what Second City had done, Paul Sills had made a new company called the Road Company. That was what I was hired to do. And the Road Company went to we were booked for 3 months with an open-end contract. But we were booked for 3 months, man. So we were there for 3 months. We had to come up with our own show. In other words, it's improv. So there's 5 improv actors from New York and Chicago. They were all new, all hired new. Auditioned, went to school, and now we're sent to St. Louis with a new director. And what we had to do was come up with a show and play there for 3 months. In other words, we were sent from scratch. Just 5 actors and a director sent down there, and they want, what are we doing? Why are we being sent down there? They want a show for 3 months. Your improvisers, come up with a show. Goodbye, thank you. Here's your tickets. Boom. And they just sent us down there, cold, man. And we opened for St. Louis, and what they did, St. Louis, they booked tours a busload of Daughters of the Purple Goose. That was the first booking we had. Old ladies with purple hair. Not that they dyed their hair purple, but they all had white hair, and there was a certain kind of a tinge to it. I don't know. It's kind of normal. It's not a dye, I don't think, but they were called Daughters of the Purple Goose, just like Daughters of the American Republic. It's a group, and they showed up in a bus, 2 busloads, and they were busloaded in, and that's what we did for the first month. It was like tours.
Okay.
That's how they came up with the concept of let's get a show in. We'll book tours in, to make, because they had figured a theater would be a kind of a cool thing. So that was the first month, but they loved it. I mean, we were ready to be, kicked out after a month. Tours, we didn't know what we had. We didn't know if the improv worked because it was new. We had to come up with new material for new people.
Yeah.
But it was a success. We were held over for a year. We were there for a year, man.
Wow.
And finally,
Amazing.
Paul Sills, after a year, we were down there just like they forgot about us. By the Second City, we were just in St. Louis, and there's nothing going on. I mean, there's 3.2 beer down there. All the bars are closed on Sunday. I mean, it's just awful. And we were in the middle of a business district. So the weekends were just closed. Our big nights for the nightclub, but during the day, there's nothing, man. And we lived above the club.
Oh, wow.
So we were stranded. Here's what we did on Saturdays and Sundays. There was a trolley car. We lived above the nightclub, and my roommate was Jack Burns. We had a window out onto the street, our little house, apartment. Jack Burns was later, when he was fired from Second City. He wasn't fired. He was like let go because there's too many people in the company. He wasn't fired. He was really cool, but he was let go. He went to Hollywood and he wrote Hee Haw. You ever hear that TV show, Hee Haw?
Yeah.
Jack Burns was my roommate, and when he was fired, he said, "Okay." I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to Hollywood." "What are you going to do?" I mean, I didn't, what's your next job if you're let go from Second City in St. Louis? Where do you go? He said, "I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to become a writer." "Okay, I see you." But I thought, that he's going to be an executive in New York somewhere. Forget show business. And the next thing I hear, he sold Hee Haw. He just went there, wrote Hee Haw, and retired. Became I don't know if he cured his alcoholism or he became an alcoholic. I don't know which happened. I know that he was a heavy drinker when he was my roommate. I know that. He wrecked our apartment twice on alcohol. I mean, I think you're an alcoholic if you turn over the icebox, the refrigerator. Yeah, how about that, Hankin? Yeah, that's pretty cool, Jack. That's good. So finally, Paul Sills flew down to St. Louis to find out what the hell we were doing that to be held over. Because all they were saying was, "No, we're going to hold him over." That was the only note he would get. It was, "No, we're holding him over for another 2 months, another 2 months, 3 months. Okay, we're going to the end of the year." And so you go, okay, fine, because they were just getting the money, the cut, the percentage. But finally, he flew down to see what the hell was going on. Maybe we could take some, steal some funny stuff to Chicago. So he came down. He watched the show. He thought it was pretty cool, and he took Jack and I back. And he didn't fire. He just let everybody go. So he's closing the show. He said, "Okay, enough. We did our, 1 year here. Thank you very much. We're closing the show." And he didn't tell everybody else that Jack and I were going up there. I don't know. What the girl became a very, she became very popular dramatic actress. She went, like Lee Strasberg School. She went from there to the Lee Strasberg School in New York and became a dramatic actress on television. So we went up there to Chicago, and that's where, boom, I became how to go back to school, because we were removed from Second City, Viola and Paul Sills. We just had the hired director down there for a year. We were down there for a year, and the new director was down there for a year. So Jack and I we got to get you into the Chicago thinking kind of. So I had to go to school with Del Close. Now, Del Close was in the company. He was in the show already.
Yeah.
God knows why he was in my class with other beginners. But we just hit it off because we thought Viola Spolin was full of crap. I mean, why were we here? I had a year under my belt down there, and he was in the company. So why were we in this class? Well, the reason was very simple. Paul Sills had a rule. If you're new coming into the company, that was for me, you had to go to class. You had to go to Viola's class. And I think that was what Viola said to her son, Paul. Anybody you hire has to go to my class first, because she was writing a book called Improv for the Theater. Have you read it? Right. And she was writing the book then. So she needed a class to write the book out of or from.
Yeah.
So we didn't know this, but she was writing the book. And so that's why I think Paul put Del Close into the class. He wanted to get not a whole bunch of, since she was writing the book.
Yeah.
He wanted somebody who knew something. And Del Close knew a lot in the class to give her material. He would correct people, or he would improv write, just what is it called? A Judas goat. He was a Judas goat. But we hit it off, me and Del. So we would always sit in the back and just mock her. It's like, oh, this is full of shit, man, because we knew, he was in the show. I had been in the show, so we didn't need this crap. And then after class, she would say, I'm going to this cafe, a coffee house down the block from Second City, where she would go have coffee and kind of make notes from class for her book. And what she would do is after each, because we had to go at least once a week. I think it was 3 times a week, but at least once a week, she would invite the class to go with her to talk about the book. And there was a table, a booth in the back where they would say, save it for Viola and her class. They're coming in to talk, So we'd sit around, and Del wouldn't go. He would always have an excuse, but sometimes he would, and he was just bored to death, man. He just couldn't take her, but he had to go. I mean, and he was in the show. It's just, anyway. So we would diss her just all the time. And she would read the book and things like that. And I would just be there because I wanted to be good. Again, a good son.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get, perks and gold stars because I wanted to get into the company fast. And finally, I did. I graduated. And we remained friends. I went into the show. Del was already in the show, so he didn't have to. So I got into the show, and then there was too many people in the show, in that show.
Yeah.
So I was let go, and then I was explained that no, you're not being fired. This is why I was let go. There was too many people in the show. There is, I don't know if you know this because you're in improv.
Yeah.
But 4 guys and a girl. I don't know where they came up with that formula, but that worked. I'm not saying that 7 guys and a girl wouldn't work or 7 girls and a guy wouldn't work, but everybody did 4 guys and a girl. I don't know where that came from, but it seemed to work. And there was like 7 guys and 2 girls in this show that I was in. So there was just too many people. The reason is that there's just not enough improv for everybody to get enough chops going. So they let me go, and I think somebody else or whatever. I think it was Jack. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was let go. So I hung around just, because I had no place to go. So I was sleeping on one of the improvisers' couches. And about a week later, 2 weeks after I was let go, retired, a car came through with Alan Meyerson, the guy who auditioned me first to get me on this roller coaster, came through and said, "Hey, I hear you were fired." He drove in, and I used to hang out at the bar. I had no place to go. I had no money. I was sleeping on people's couches in Chicago. I didn't know that town. So he said, "Is there a guy named Larry Hankin here?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "There's a guy in a car outside wants to talk to you." So I go out, and it was snowing in Chicago. And it was Alan. Said, "Hey, come on, we're going to Chicago. We're going to San Francisco." So I went to San Francisco with them. I said, "I'm going back to New York. I don't know where you guys are going." So we're going to San Francisco to start a new company. I said, "I don't believe you. I've been in and out of, Chicago and New York and St. Louis and stand up, and I'm through. I'm just going home. I'm going back to New York. I'm starting all over. I'm going back to the Village. I'm doing 3 minutes. Goodbye." And I went and I said, "If you want me, send me a plane ticket. Goodbye." And I just went back inside. He drove off into a snowstorm. And I got a plane ticket about 2 weeks later, flew to San Francisco. And about a year or two later, when we finally became a huge success, Del Close shows up and says, "I want to join the company. I quit Chicago." And so we were roommates. So that's how we became roommates.
Wow.
So we were roommates, and that was a crazy time, man.
Yeah, was it?
Because he would come up with these weird conclusions about what he saw, and he would put 2 and 2 together and come up with 743. I don't know how he did that. But he's like he would say, he would go down to the cellar. He was at somebody's house. He'd go down to the cellar. He was living there for a while before he moved in with me. Mm-hmm. And he was obviously doing drugs, I guess. He would go down to the cellar and you would hear, "Ah!" And then he would come up, and then no sound at all. We thought, and then he would just come up and he'd be okay. And then he'd go down to the cellar. "Ah!" And then he'd come up and then he would come up and he says, "Okay, I've proved it." "Proved what?" He said, "There's a certain way that if you walk, you would have this flash of inspiration or whatever, this epiphany." Really?
Wow, okay.
Because of the way that you walked? Yeah. And so somebody went down with him, who later told the tale to me. So we went downstairs. One of the pipes were leaking. It's a cellar. We went down to the cellar. One of the water pipes was leaking, dripping, and there was a puddle. And in the puddle
what I think it is,
was a live, raw electric wire.
I knew it. I knew that's what this was.
And Del was so high that he would go bump, 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 bump in a very orderly pattern and step in the puddle.
That's his epiphany.
And it never occurred to him to just take the fucking wire out of the puddle, man.
Oh my God.
Never occurred to him.
Bizarre. That's what I'm saying. You seem like a very bizarre man who was this brain.
So he would come up with the conclusion. I have found.
Yeah.
No, here's the total opposite of that. When he was in the committee and we were roommates one day, because he knew I was a stand-up comedian way back in the day, he used to be a stand-up comedian. That's how he started in show business too. He was a stand-up comedian. And he said to me, now this is in the mid-60s, 65, 66, we're in North Beach, he wanted to show me that he was a stand-up comedian. And he said, I got a couple of new ideas and I want to test it out. And so he had gone around, and we were a tourist attraction by then. So he'd gone around to all the, basically the topless places. Topless was big in '65. So he went around to the topless bars.
Types of places the Dead was going.
Excuse me?
Is that the type of places the Dead was going?
The Dead?
Yeah, or not?
The Grateful Dead?
Yeah.
No, they weren't playing. Were they playing topless bars? I don't know. I don't know. But he went around. Del went around to asking if he could do a 10-minute set. Just to try out some material. And we were so popular in North Beach, and these nightclubs were in North Beach, that they knew him, and they knew the popularity of the committee, and they thought, oh, he's got to be funny. He wants 10 minutes, maybe he'll be a draw, whatever. So he said to me, I'm going up to the Top Hat, I think was a topless place, Carol Doda. So we went in there and he said, I want you to come with me. I want you to show you what I'm doing. I got some new stuff. So we go to this, it was a strip joint anyway. There's a pole and girls on the pole. And, we come in, there's those guys in there, just guys. And over the loudspeaker, he said, okay, I'm going to go on. Ladies and gentlemen, the Top Hat is proud to present the comedy stylings of Mr. Del Close. And the girls split from the stage, and the band played him on and then split. And the crowd was just stunned, like, what the? Okay, so they were just stunned to quietness, like, what's going on? And Del just sauntered onto the stage with his hand, one hand in his pocket. I don't know if you know Del. And let me see, a cigarette, in his hand. For you people on radio, I've got a cigarette in my hand. And, a half-smoked cigarette in his hand, and one hand in his pocket, and he jumpy jolly just walks on with a smile on his face, like he was the club owner. Like he came on the stage to announce something. And he goes, hi. That's all, just hi. And he just started talking for 10 minutes. And within, I'd say, 2 minutes or less, these guys were laughing at what he was saying. I mean, they got he was brilliant. He killed. He was great.
Wow.
And then he just said, thank you very much. And he walked off the stage, like I knew I could do this. I told you so. Yeah. And he said, what'd you think, Hank? And I said, that was fucking great, man. Are you kidding? It was amazing is what it was. It just blew my mind. So that's another side of him. I mean, he could pull it off. Not only was he weird, he could pull it off. You got time for one more Del Close story?
Sure, yeah.
So he goes, he's my roommate. So I go out, one day, out for the day, and I come back and nobody's home. But it seems like somebody was home, or maybe the door was open. I didn't have to put the key in the lock. So obviously, did he leave and not lock the door? And then I see, no, I think. And I started yelling because there's somebody here, because you wouldn't just leave like this. So I was like, hey, Del. And then I go to the bathroom and I try to go to the bathroom and the door's locked. Well, you can only lock the bathroom door from the inside. So pound on the door, Del, no answer. I tried, oh my God, he OD'd in there. Oh my God, he's dead and I can't get in. I got to fucking break down the door. So I'm pounding on the door. Maybe I could wake him up, Del. And finally, I hear movement in there. And very slowly, I hear the click, the door open, and it opens a peek. And there's Del, and he's full of perspiration, And he goes, oh, Hankin, how you doing, man? Come on in. So I come in. I go, what the fuck are you doing, man? He said, oh, I thought you were the cops. What? Okay, so I'm the cops. What did you lock the door for? He said, I was hiding. You were hiding. You locked the door. See, I mean, that's not logical. If you're hiding, why then they know you're in there. Why did you lock the door? Well, I didn't want him to come in. And you were hiding. So where were you hiding? It's a fucking bathroom. She says, I was hiding under the tub. Now we had one of these old-fashioned tubs with the iron claws that they just round on the bottom and it's up on, so you could slide under there.
Yeah.
He would, and I look, you were under there? He said, yeah, man. And obviously he had shot up. So I go, okay, fine. So that was, okay, I now remember what the clue was. There must be somebody here. When I came in, this is weird. Okay, so I come in, I'm looking around, there's nobody there. The thing that clued me in, when I left, what I did was it was a big bedroom, and then there was a side room. So he slept in the side room, which was I guess like I don't know, you would put a couch there or something, and it had a window so you could look out. So like a sitting room, off of the bedroom. So that was his room. In my room, I had a big bed, and I had a hammock strung crosswise from the corner of the room to the corner of the room.
Okay.
So it was on a diagonal. So the bed's this way. You people, listen to the radio.
Yeah.
Get an internet. Get YouTube, or have these people get on Zoom. Okay. But you got the idea.
Yes,
The hammock is diagonal, the bed is perpendicular. Thank you. So what I would do is I would lay in the hammock and swing and then roll off the thing onto the bed. It was really cool. And it was a big hammock.
Yeah.
Okay, now when I walked in, and that was the setup. So when I walked into the bedroom looking for him, I looked up at the ceiling, and opposite the hammock. So if the hammock is diagonal, across the ceiling to make an X, if it was over the hammock, the opposite, there was black dots, a black dot line across the other angle of the hammock. So if you put them together, it would be an X. Okay. I couldn't figure, well, that wasn't there when I left.
Oh.
So I thought, if Dell did that, first of all, I don't see how he could do that. Even if you stood on the hammock would cave in.
Yeah.
And to stipple that, so there was an impossibility here. So that was what led me to think that maybe Dell was still around. I don't know, and he did that, and I got to find out why. So when he came out of the bathroom, that was the first question. I brought him into the bedroom, and I pointed up, and I said, "What the hell is that, and how did it get there?" And he goes, "Oh, that. Oh, well, I got in the hammock, and I shot up in the hammock, and I was cleaning the blood out of the needle by squirting it up as I swung in the hammock."
Oh my God.
To clean out, and so I shot up a couple of times. I got twice, I think. So that was blood. That was black dots were blood on the ceiling.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean,
That's the roommate.
it's Dell, it's Dell. And yet he invented the Harold, man.
Yeah.
He came up with the Harold.
Yeah.
By the way, I've been in many Harolds, and I've seen many Harolds. I've only actually seen the Harold work 3 times, and one, when it did actually work the way it was designed to work, I fell out of my chair laughing. It was so hysterically funny. But it only happened once, and it was by the Upright Citizens Company, and the company in New York.
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult, you have to be really understand the concept
Yeah.
of what he was talking about. And I did see it work perfectly only once in, many, many years. But when it did work, boy, wow. So I understand Del and how obscure and convoluted his thinking is, but he was right. In other words, even if it didn't work, the concept when it did, I guess it's like looking for E equals MC square. You only got to have that thing work once, and you got the answers to a lot of other problems,
Yeah.
And Del was that kind of guy. I mean, he had the information. If you could just tap into exactly what it was, he was right on. And he was a great improviser. We improvise. I loved improvising with him. There is a classic scene between me and him. It was a drug scene, and it's on one of the albums. It's been preserved. It's about drugs, and it's a classic. And we also did another classic with John Brandt, and it's called How to Talk Hip. There's another thing, you know that one, right? Or I've heard of it anyway. So yeah, but I haven't thought about that in a long time. But the scene that I did with him, yeah, we ran that ran for a long time. That was in the show. I don't know what it was called, but something to do, but it was a drug scene. It was about two junkies who had run out of veins. That was the premise. What happens? What do you do if you've run out of fucking veins to shoot up in? What do you do? And yeah, it's a great scene. I'm not going to tell you any more about it. So that's my story. And I'm stuck with it.
Wow, this has been so wonderful, Larry. I feel like you could have went on for 2 more hours for sure.
For more.
Well, buy the book. If anybody out there knows a publisher or a manager who wants to, you can't get a book published without a literary agent or a manager. It's like being back in Greenwich Village, representation.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is different than show business, even though it's in entertainment. But you need a letter, and I don't have any more agents anymore because I got out of show business. I'm a writer now, and a musician. I just pointed to a guitar.
Yeah.
And
a painter? You still paint?
Oh yeah. So go to thereallarryhankin.com. That's my website. Thereallarryhankin.com. Don't go to larryhankin.com. That's being held for ransom by a hacker who bought it and is holding it for ransom. So I just got
my brother's in cybersecurity, so we'll talk after too.
Oh, okay. So thereallarryhankin.com, and up there are 40 of my paintings, but also T-shirts. You see this? I'm pointing at one of my paintings. Too bad if you're on radio.
Yeah.
No, they look amazing. We'll do a screenshot for them too. So when we post.
Oh, okay. So they're all on T-shirts. For really cheap T-shirts, but they're great. And the T-shirt manufacturer and distributor of these T-shirts, the paintings are museum quality. They're like these that you see on my wall here. They're 3 feet by 4 feet. They're museum quality.
Like the graffiti, how you did the graffiti kind of feel behind, it's cool. You guys have to see it. I'm definitely going to post the screenshot.
Okay, but they're so they're like $300 to $400 a piece. They're museum quality, but the T-shirts are museum quality, but they're really cheap. They're like $13 or something like that. But they're great, and all of the paintings are on T-shirts. So whichever you want. Okay, that's my ad.
I appreciate it, Larry. Thank you so much. We'll plug the book when that's coming out on our show too. Maybe we'll have another conversation.
Okay, either if somebody cancels on you, can always call me. But when the book comes out, let's do this again. I can talk about the book. So you guys would help me out.
Definitely.
I appreciate that.
Cool.
Thank you so much.